In the summer of 1980, Anne Victoria Manchester, a 26-year-old graduate student, disappeared without a trace, leaving her family and friends searching for answers that remain elusive more than 40 years later. Anne was born on June 10, 1954, in Delaware, to Andrew and Joyce Manchester. She spent her early childhood between Wilmington, Delaware, and Walnut Creek, California, where her family lived between 1961 and 1966 before eventually returning to Delaware. By the time Anne was an adult, the family had settled at 18 Harlot Drive in the community of Angeli, near the former Hercules Country Club in Newcastle County. Anne attended Alexis Fur DuPont High School and was known for her intelligence and drive. In June 1980, she was living independently in a third-floor apartment at the Villa Belmont apartment complex on Welsh Tract Road in Newark, Delaware. She was in the final week of her studies at the University of Delaware, where she was on the verge of earning a master's degree in business administration. This was a significant milestone in her life, having previously worked as a secretary at the Claymont Steel firm before deciding to pursue higher education full-time. Her family and friends described Anne as a meticulous and organized individual. Her apartment was always immaculate, and she carefully recorded her appointments on a calendar. Anne's parents, Andrew and Joyce, had been on a short vacation and returned home on July 9, 1980. Planning to visit their daughter, they went to her apartment at Villa Belmont. They noticed Anne's light blue Honda parked in the complex's lot, but upon entering her apartment, they found it unlocked. The interior was clean and undisturbed, yet eerily silent. Her personal belongings, including her keys, purse, cigarettes, lighter, and checkbook, were still inside. A pair of her flip-flop sandals had been neatly placed beneath the dining table, and a stack of textbooks sat next to a half-full glass of diet soda. A thin layer had formed on the soda, indicating it had been sitting there for some time. However, Anne herself was nowhere to be found. Deeply concerned, her parents immediately contacted the police to report her missing. The investigation revealed that Anne had last been seen on Sunday, June 29, 1980, 10 days before her parents returned from their trip. That day, she had been visited by an unnamed male acquaintance who left her apartment around 12:30 p.m. At approximately 2 p.m., Anne made a phone call to a female friend. This conversation, during which they reportedly discussed school and nothing unusual, was the last known contact Anne had before her disappearance. The male visitor, who was not a student, provided a detailed description of what Anne was wearing at the time, a t-shirt and cut-off blue jeans, and cooperated fully with the investigation. Anne's failure to show up for her final exam the next day, June 30th, raised immediate alarm. Her parents, desperate for answers, offered a $1,000 reward for information about her disappearance. Anne's father, an engineer at Hercules Incorporated, publicly expressed his belief that his daughter had been abducted and harmed. The lead investigator on the case, Detective Alex Vonk, echoed this concern, stating that Anne's disappearance was entirely out of character. He described her as stable, responsible, and not involved in any serious romantic relationship, although she had casually dated in the past. Anne's friends noted that she always traveled by car and did not jog or cycle recreationally. Her neighbors reported no signs of unusual activity at the apartment complex around the time of her disappearance. The fact that her sandals were left beneath the table led investigators to speculate that Anne may have left her apartment barefoot, possibly stepping out for a brief task, such as retrieving her mail. The unlocked door suggested she had intended to return shortly. Extensive searches of the fields and residential areas surrounding the Villa Belmont complex yielded no clues. Flyers were distributed throughout Delaware and neighboring states in hopes of generating leads, but tips were scarce. 1 year after Anne's disappearance, a local newspaper reported a rumor that she had been murdered, placed in a suitcase, and discarded at the Claymont Steel firm, her former workplace. However, this theory was debunked by law enforcement, as no evidence supported the claim. Another theory suggested that Anne had taken her own life, but her body was never found to substantiate this. In subsequent years, Anne's DNA was compared to 3 unidentified women, known as Jane Does, but none turned out to be a match, leaving investigators and her family without the closure they desperately sought. The first comparison was to the Hanover County Jane Doe, a woman discovered in Doswell, Virginia, in 1981, following a severe car accident, Her remains were badly burned, and her head was missing, making identification incredibly difficult. The second case was the cheerleader in the trunk, a young woman whose body was found in a footlocker in Frederick County, Maryland, in 1982. The mystery surrounding her death captured attention, but ultimately did not provide any connection to Anne. The third comparison was to Otta Annie, whose skeletal remains, along with another individual's, were discovered on Akutan Island in Alaska in 1980. Despite the promising leads these cases initially seemed to offer, Anne was ruled out as a match in all of them, further deepening the mystery of her disappearance. At the time of her disappearance, Anne Manchester was described as standing 5 feet 2 inches to 5 feet 3 inches tall, weighing between 110 and 115 pounds, with brown hair and brown eyes. She was a smoker and had a distinctive mark or growth on her left eyelid, a feature that could have helped identify her if found. On the day she vanished, Anne was last seen wearing a silver wedding ring, a gold Timex watch, a t-shirt, and cut-off blue jeans with a heart stitched onto the back pocket. These small, personal details became haunting reminders for her loved ones as they clung to the hope of her return. Investigators have long believed that Anne's disappearance involved foul play, suspecting that she may have been abducted or lured into a vehicle shortly after leaving her apartment, possibly by someone she knew or trusted. Despite the passage of decades, Anne's case remains unsolved, and her fate is still a troubling mystery. If alive today, Anne Manchester would be 69 years old. Her family continues to hold on to hope that one day they will uncover the truth about what happened to her, allowing them to finally find peace. Investigators also remain committed to finding answers, believing that even after all this time, someone may hold the key to unraveling the events that led to Anne's disappearance. The enduring dedication of both her loved ones and those working on the case serves as a testament to their determination to bring Anne's story to light, refusing to let her memory fade into obscurity.